The plea, under the stars. The night sky was heavy with strange stars. A cold wind passed across the dry fields, carrying the smell of dust and hunger. The alien farmer staggered through his ruined land, his steps weak, his breath shallow. Once these fields had been green and full of life, but now they were nothing but cracked soil and dying plants. His people were gone, his family lost, and the farm that had been his pride was now a grave of silence. He fell to his knees in the middle of the road, his hands trembling against the ground. His body was thin, his eyes hollow, yet there was still a strange fire in them. He had fought famine for months, but tonight his strength finally broke. He whispered to himself, "If no one helps me, I will not see the next sunrise." From the shadows came the sound of boots, slow and steady against the cracked earth. The farmer lifted his head, his vision blurred, and saw a figure walking toward him. It was a human, tall, scarred from battles, carrying a pack on his back and a weapon at his side. The human's eyes were sharp but calm, scanning the road as if danger could appear at any moment. The farmer's heart pounded, not from fear but from desperate hope. He forced himself forward, crawling until he reached the stranger's feet. With a broken voice he cried, "Feed me tonight, human, and I'll carry your burdens." His words echoed through the night like a vow spoken before the stars. The human froze, surprised by the sight of an alien kneeling in the dirt. He had seen aliens proud, cruel, or cunning, but never like this. Never begging, never kneeling. The farmer bowed his head lower, his body shaking. "My farm is dead, my body is weak, but my oath is strong," he whispered. "If you give me food tonight, I will carry your pain, your weight, your suffering, as if it were mine." The human stared at him in silence, his mind turning. Why would an alien make such a strange promise for a single meal? Why would he lower himself before a human? The soldier looked around the empty land, the silence heavy as a grave. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small ration bar. Dry and simple. The farmer's eyes lit with hunger, his hands trembling as he took the food. He ate slowly at first, then faster, as if every bite pulled him back from the edge of death. The human watched quietly, his face unreadable, his hand resting on his weapon just in case. When the food was gone, the farmer fell back to his knees and pressed his forehead to the ground. "Human," he said with weak but steady voice, "you have saved me from death, and I will not forget. From this night forward, every burden you carry, I will carry too." The human narrowed his eyes, confused. He thought it was the desperation of a starving man, nothing more. Yet there was something in the way the alien spoke. Something heavy, something binding. The night grew colder, the stars sharper in the sky. The human sat down on a broken stone nearby. "Why me?" he finally asked, his voice calm but curious. The farmer raised his head slowly, his face lit by faint starlight. "Because no one else came," he said. "Because your kind were the only ones who ever showed kindness when my kind turned away." His voice cracked, but his eyes shone with truth. For a long moment they both sat in silence. The human's face softened, though his soldier's heart kept its guard. He had carried weapons, he had carried orders, but he had never been asked to let someone else carry his burdens. It was a strange offer, almost foolish, but something deep inside told him this meeting was not chance. The alien farmer, weak and broken, was not lying. He had given his pride in exchange for life, and in doing so, he had tied his fate to the human's path. The fire crackled softly as the human lit a small flame to warm the night. The farmer sat close, wrapping his thin arms around himself, his body shaking less now. He looked at the soldier with quiet eyes that once belonged to a proud farmer but now burned with the fire of survival. He whispered again, almost like a prayer, "Feed me tonight, human, and I will carry your burdens." The words hung in the air, carried by the wind across the dead land, and though the human said nothing, he felt the weight of those words settle upon him, as if the stars themselves had heard and agreed. The night stretched on, heavy with silence and hidden meaning. Neither knew what tomorrow would bring, but in that moment under the broken sky a bond had been made. A bond of hunger, of mercy, and of promise, and nothing in the universe is heavier than a promise kept. A meal shared. The fire burned low, giving only a faint glow against the ruined fields. The human soldier sat with his back to a cracked wall, his eyes sharp and steady, watching the alien farmer eat. Every bite the farmer took was slow at first, like a man tasting life again after walking the edge of death. His hands shook as he held the ration bar, but his eyes never left the soldier's face. He chewed in silence, yet there was something sacred in the act, as if the food was more than food, as if it was hope. The soldier did not speak, but his hand rested near his weapon, trained instinct telling him to trust nothing. He had shared food before, and sometimes kindness had turned into betrayal. But tonight felt different, strange, almost heavy. The farmer swallowed the last piece, and tears shone in his eyes, not of sorrow, but of relief. "Human," he whispered, his voice still weak. "You have given me more than bread, you have given me breath." The human frowned, puzzled by the weight of the words. "It was only food," he said quietly, though his tone carried no mockery. The farmer shook his head, his thin body trembling as he struggled to rise. "No," he said, his voice shaking. "For me it was life, and life must be repaid." He placed his hand flat upon the dirt, drawing a symbol with his finger, lines curving into strange patterns. The soldier leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. "What are you doing?" he asked. The farmer's voice grew stronger as he spoke. "In my people's ways, when one life is saved by another, a bond can be forged, a bond deeper than blood, a bond older than stars." He drew the last mark and placed his palm against it. The soil glowed faintly as if the earth itself listened. The soldier shifted uneasily, the fire crackling behind him. He had fought aliens on battlefields, seen their machines, their weapons, their tricks, but this was something different, something ancient, something tied to the land itself. The farmer's eyes lifted, glowing faintly in the starlight. "Your burdens are now mine," he said, his tone filled with a strange certainty. "Your wounds, your pain, your grief, when they come to you, they will come to me." The human felt a chill run through him. This was no simple thanks, no polite promise. This was something binding, and though he wished to laugh it off, the glow in the dirt and the fire in the farmer's eyes made him pause. "You're telling me you would take my pain?" the soldier asked. His voice hard, the farmer nodded. "Yes, because you gave me life when the universe gave me none." Silence fell again, heavy and thick, broken only by the whisper of the wind through broken stalks. The human leaned back, staring at the stars above. He had carried many burdens in his life, some he had never spoken of, some that no one else could see. The idea of giving them to someone else felt impossible. Yet here was a starving alien promising exactly that. It was madness, and yet there was honesty in the farmer's voice that no madness could fake. The farmer finally sat back, his strength returning slowly. He looked at the soldier with eyes that were no longer hollow, but alive with fire. "You do not believe me," he said. Not accusing, but calm. The human smirked faintly. "I've heard many promises, farmer, most of them broken." The farmer only bowed his head. "Then let time prove me true." The fire crackled low. The soldier took another ration from his pack and handed it over. The farmer accepted it, not with hunger this time, but with quiet respect. He broke the food in half and held one piece out. "For you," he said, "a bond is not one way. I will not eat again without sharing with you." The human looked at him for a long moment, then accepted the piece. Something shifted between them, something unspoken but strong. The night deepened, shadows stretching across the broken land. The human rested his back against stone, letting his eyes drift half shut, but his hand never left his weapon. The farmer sat across the fire, his thin frame wrapped in silence, but his mind awake. He thought of his ancestors, of the oaths written in soil and stars, and he knew tonight had changed his fate. No longer was he a dying farmer on a ruined world. He was now tied to the path of a human, and that bond, fragile and strange, might become stronger than either could imagine. The soldier opened his eyes once more. Staring at the flicker of flame, he whispered to himself, so soft the farmer could barely hear, "This is madness." The farmer smiled faintly, his voice firm. "No, this is survival." And in the silence that followed, both men knew that something unseen had begun, something that would test them, break them, and perhaps save them. The oath of burden. The dawn came slow over the broken fields, painting the sky with pale light. The soldier woke first, his instincts sharp, his hand already near his weapon. The farmer was still awake, his eyes open, watching the fire's last glow fade into ash. There was no rest in his gaze, only quiet patience, as if he had been waiting for something. The soldier stood, stretching his tired limbs, scanning the horizon for danger. The land was still empty, lifeless, yet heavy with silence that never felt safe. "You stayed awake all night," the soldier said. His voice low, the farmer nodded. When an oath is spoken, the first night is sacred. The soldier frowned, his brow furrowed. Sacred to who? The farmer looked down at the dirt beneath his hands, tracing faint patterns on the ground. To the soil, to the stars, to the burden itself, he whispered. The bond must be tested, or it will not hold. The soldier shook his head, muttering under his breath, superstition. But even as he said it, the memory of the glowing soil from last night stayed in his mind. He wanted to dismiss it, to call it nonsense, yet something in him felt the weight of unseen chains. The farmer rose slowly, still weak but standing taller than before. He turned toward the soldier and bowed his head once more. Today you will see, human, that my vow was not only words. The soldier strapped his pack tight, his face unreadable. Show me then, he said, though his tone carried both doubt and curiosity. The farmer placed his palm against his chest and spoke in his ancient tongue. The words were strange, flowing like water yet sharp as stone. The air around them seemed to shift, a faint hum rising from the soil itself. The soldier stiffened, his hand tightening on his weapon. But the farmer did not move toward him. When the chant ended, the farmer's eyes glowed faintly with a light that was not of the fire. He dropped to his knees again and pressed his hands against the dirt. The burden is bound, he whispered. From this day, what would break you shall come to me first. The soldier laughed, though the sound was hollow. You're telling me you can take my wounds. The farmer lifted his head, his expression calm. Yes, if you bleed, I will bleed. If you suffer, I will suffer. And if death comes, it will knock upon my door before yours. The soldier's laughter faded. Replaced with uneasy silence, he had seen many strange things in war. Weapons that bent light, machines that burned through stone, creatures that defied reason. But this was something older, stranger, something that felt alive. He opened his mouth to argue, but stopped when he noticed a line of blood running from the farmer's nose. You're already hurt, the soldier said sharply. The farmer wiped it away with the back of his hand. The bond takes time to settle. The soldier scowled. This is madness. You'll kill yourself. The farmer shook his head. Better to die carrying another than to live carrying nothing. The word struck the soldier harder than he expected. He remembered comrades who had fallen, burdens he could never share, guilt that had never left him. The idea that anyone would choose to take that weight felt impossible. Yet here it was, standing in front of him before he could speak again. The sound of footsteps echoed across the ruined road. The soldier turned instantly, weapon raised, his eyes narrowing. 3 figures emerged from the distance, ragged but armed with crude blades, bandits, scavengers of the wasteland. Their eyes hungry, their grins sharp. Look at this, one called out. A soldier with food, and a farmer too weak to fight. Fortune smiles on us today. They closed in with eager steps, blades catching the morning light. The soldier lifted his rifle, steady and calm. But before he could fire, the farmer stepped forward. Stay behind me, the farmer whispered, his body trembling but his eyes burning. The soldier almost cursed. You can't even stand straight. But the farmer did not move aside. Instead, he spread his arms wide as the bandits rushed closer. The first blow came down meant for the soldier, but the farmer took it across his arm, blood spilling instantly. He did not fall, he did not cry out, he only stood firm, teeth clenched, carrying the pain without passing it forward. The soldier's eyes widened as he realized the farmer was truly taking the burden. Another strike came, this one toward the soldier's side. But again the farmer stepped in the way. The blade cut deep across his shoulder. Blood dripping onto the dirt, the soldier fired then. A sharp burst of shots that echoed through the broken fields. 2 bandits fell. The third ran into the distance. His courage shattered. When silence returned, the farmer collapsed to his knees. Bleeding heavily, the soldier dropped beside him, pulling out a bandage from his pack. Idiot, he muttered, pressing cloth to the wounds. You'll die if you keep this up. The farmer's lips curved into a faint smile, even as blood stained his skin. This is the oath, he whispered. Your burden has begun. The soldier froze, staring at him with a mix of anger, awe and confusion. The farmer looked weak, broken yet unshaken. His words carried the weight of truth, heavier than any weapon, and as the morning sun rose higher, the soldier realized something he did not want to admit. The bond was real, and it was already too late to turn back. The first test, The sun climbed slowly above the dead horizon, its light weak and pale. The battlefield of the night was still fresh. Bloodstains on the dirt, broken blades scattered like fallen bones. The human soldier sat beside the wounded farmer, his hands pressed firmly on the bandages, trying to stop the bleeding. The farmer's skin was cold, but his eyes remained open, steady, unbroken. He did not whimper. He did not cry. He only breathed through the pain as if it belonged to him alone. "You're insane," the soldier muttered, his jaw tight. "You're going to bleed out for nothing." The farmer shook his head slowly, his lips cracked but smiling faintly. "Not for nothing," he whispered. "For you?" The soldier clenched his teeth, his heart uneasy. He had fought many battles, but never had anyone stepped into the fire to shield him like this. Every comrade he lost had fallen despite his efforts. And here stood, or rather crawled, a farmer who bled willingly for him. The silence stretched, heavy with guilt. The soldier wanted to walk away, to leave this madness behind. Yet something chained him to the man before him. He tied the last knot of the bandage and pulled the farmer up against a broken wall for support. "You won't last if you keep this up," he said, his voice sharp but his eyes softer. The farmer smiled faintly again. "Then I will last as long as you need me." The soldier turned away, his chest tight. He hated those words, hated the weight they carried. He began to gather his gear, checking his rifle, reloading quietly. The farmer watched him, his head tilted slightly. "You're leaving?" he asked. The soldier stopped, not looking back. "No, I'm moving forward." He glanced over his shoulder. "And you're coming with me, whether you crawl or walk." The farmer's eyes widened slightly, then softened with gratitude. They moved slowly across the ruined land, the soldier leading, the farmer limping but determined. Every step was painful, but he refused to fall. The soldier carried his weapon high, scanning the horizon, but his mind was not at ease. He kept replaying the moment of the fight, the farmer taking blows that should have cut him down. Each wound on the farmer felt like a mark of shame upon the soldier's soul. When the heat of the day grew harsh, they found a small ruined hut half buried in sand. The soldier forced the farmer to sit and rest. "You're stubborn," he said, pulling out another strip of cloth for the wounds. The farmer gave a faint laugh. "Farmers are always stubborn. That is why fields grow even in hard seasons." The soldier did not smile, but his hand slowed as he tightened the cloth, careful now as if each knot carried an apology. The farmer studied him, his weak eyes still sharp with truth. "You carry more than weapons," he said softly. "You carry grief." The soldier froze, his hand pausing mid-motion. He wanted to deny it, to dismiss the words. But the farmer's tone was not questioning, it was certain. "You've lost people," the farmer whispered. "I feel it. I feel the weight that presses on you even when you stand tall." The soldier's jaw tightened, his eyes staring hard at the dirt floor. Memories surged, faces lost, voices silenced, comrades who would never rise again. He had buried them all in silence, carrying the guilt like iron chains. And now this weak alien dared to speak it aloud, dared to carry it with him. "You don't know what you're talking about," the soldier snapped. Though his voice cracked at the edges, the farmer only smiled gently, blood still seeping through his bandages. "I know enough, because your burden already bleeds into me." The soldier stood, pacing, his fists clenched. "This oath of yours will kill you," he said, "and I won't let that happen." The farmer tilted his head, calm even in pain. "Then do not let your burdens grow heavier." The soldier stopped, his breath sharp, realizing the cruel truth. His every step, his every fight would now cut into another. He was not only carrying himself anymore, he was dragging someone else with him. As the day stretched into evening, a storm began to gather in the distance, dark clouds rolling over the horizon. The soldier watched the sky, his instincts on edge. Storms on this land were not only wind and rain, they carried ash and fire. Sweeping away anything left exposed, he turned to the farmer. "We move now." The farmer nodded weakly, leaning on him as they stepped out of the hut into the coming dark. The storm broke fast, roaring winds cutting like blades, dust and ash swirling so thick the world turned gray. The soldier pulled the farmer close, shielding him with his own body, forcing every step through the chaos. The farmer coughed, his wounds reopening, blood mixing with dust, yet he pressed forward without complaint. Every time the soldier stumbled, the farmer steadied him despite his own failing body. It was as if the vow gave him strength that flesh could not. Finally, they collapsed into a cave cut into the rocks. The storm raging outside. The soldier dropped to his knees, gasping, his arms burning from carrying more weight than he should. The farmer fell beside him, his body torn and bleeding. Yet he whispered with a faint smile, "See, human, I told you. Your burden is mine." The soldier stared at him, torn between anger and awe, his voice low. "You're a fool," the farmer chuckled weakly. "Then I am a fool who still stands with you." The storm roared outside, the cave shook with thunder, but inside, two lives were now bound tighter than chains, and for the first time in years, the soldier felt that maybe he was not walking alone. The weight of pain. The storm raged through the night, howling against the cave walls like a beast that would not sleep. Ash and fire swept outside, but inside the cave, silence sat heavy between the soldier and the alien farmer. The soldier kept watch, his rifle resting across his knees, eyes sharp even as fatigue pulled at him. The farmer lay against the stone, wrapped in torn cloth, his chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. Every time the soldier glanced at him, he saw the blood seeping through the bandages, and guilt gnawed at his heart. When the storm finally began to fade, the first light of dawn spilled faintly into the cave. The soldier rose, stepping outside to test the air, the ground still hot, the sky still dark with ash. He returned quickly, kneeling beside the farmer, his voice low but firm. "We move soon." The farmer opened his eyes, weak but clear. "Then I will move with you." The soldier frowned, shaking his head. "You're barely breathing. You won't survive if you keep pushing." The farmer gave a faint smile. "If you walk, I walk. If you fall, I fall." "That is the oath." The soldier clenched his jaw, anger mixing with frustration. "This oath is madness," he muttered. "You bleed because of me, you suffer because of me, and still you call it loyalty." The farmer coughed, blood on his lips, yet his voice was calm. "It is not madness, human, it is balance. You gave me life. Now I carry yours." The words cut deep into the soldier. Deeper than any blade could, he turned away, staring at the cave's mouth, unable to meet those steady eyes. They set out when the storm fully passed, the land scarred and black, the soil cracked like old bone. The soldier walked first. Every step heavy, the farmer followed, limping but refusing to fall behind. The silence of the wasteland pressed on them, broken only by the sound of their steps and the farmer's slow breathing. The soldier's mind was not on the path but on the bond. Every time the farmer stumbled, every time blood dripped from his wounds, he felt the weight of his choices pressing harder. By midday, they reached the edge of a ruined settlement, half buried in dust, buildings broken, doors hanging loose. The soldier raised his rifle. Scanning for movement, his instincts sharp, the farmer placed a trembling hand on his arm. "Be careful. Places like this draw scavengers." They entered slowly, the streets empty, silence ringing louder than any voice. But silence never lasted long in lands like these. The first arrow came from the shadows, striking the soldier's shoulder, but no pain came. Instead, the farmer gasped, his body jerking as blood spread across his own shoulder. The soldier spun, fury flashing in his eyes, firing into the shadows where raiders lurked. Figures emerged, rough and hungry, armed with blades and bows, circling like wolves. The soldier fought with precision, but with every strike aimed at him, the farmer took the wound instead. An axe swung, meant for the soldier's side, but the farmer cried out, collapsing as the blade's damage burned across his ribs. The soldier's rage exploded. He fired round after round until the raiders fled, leaving their dead behind. When silence returned, he dropped to his knees beside the farmer, his hands shaking as he pressed against the bleeding wounds. "You fool," he hissed, his voice breaking. "You should have let me take it. You should have let me bleed." The farmer looked at him with pained eyes but still managed a faint smile. "But you did not bleed, that is the vow." The soldier's vision blurred. Not from dust, but from guilt. He had seen men die before, comrades falling beside him, but this was different. This was a man who had nothing left, no reason to live. Yet he chose to stand in death's path for him, and that choice was tearing the soldier apart. "You'll die carrying my pain," he whispered, voice raw, "and I can't let that happen." The farmer's breath was ragged, but his words were steady. "If I die with honor. Not as a starving ghost on dead soil, but as one who carried a human's burden." His voice grew faint, yet every word struck harder than bullets. "You gave me food, I give you my strength. That is balance. That is life." The soldier pressed his hand harder on the wounds, desperate, his voice trembling. "Don't speak like you're already gone." The farmer closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again. I am not gone, not yet. But every wound I take reminds you, human, that no one walks alone. Not even you. The soldier froze, the words digging deep into scars he thought no one could touch. He remembered nights where he thought he carried the world alone, nights where he wished someone would share his weight. And now that wish stood before him, bleeding, broken, yet unyielding. The soldier pulled the farmer up against him, gripping tight. I don't deserve this, he muttered. I don't deserve you bleeding for me. The farmer gave a weak laugh, almost gentle. No one deserves kindness, that is why it is given. The soldier closed his eyes, feeling the words like fire in his chest, and for the first time in years he whispered, Thank you. The farmer's head rested against his shoulder, weak but smiling. Then carry forward, human, and let me carry the rest. The soldier held him tighter, his heart heavy, his soul torn, for he knew that every step he took from this day on would cost blood not his own, and that was a burden heavier than any battlefield. Secrets of the soil. The night was heavy again, the fire small and weak, casting long shadows on the cave walls. The soldier sat close to the flames, his rifle across his knees, his mind turning with thoughts he could not silence. The farmer rested nearby, wrapped in cloth, his breathing shallow but steady, his wounds barely held by rough bandages. Each time the soldier looked at him, the guilt pressed deeper, heavier than the pack on his back. He whispered to himself, every cut, every strike. It should have been mine. The farmer stirred, opening his eyes, their glow faint in the firelight. You still fight the oath in your heart, he said quietly, his voice rough but calm. The soldier frowned. Because it makes no sense, I bleed, you bleed. Yet I stay whole while you break apart. The farmer shifted, leaning against the stone, his hands tracing the dirt floor. It is time you understood, human, why the soil listens, why the burden binds. The soldier turned toward him, suspicion in his eyes. Explain then, he said. Tell me why the earth itself glowed when you swore. The farmer lowered his gaze, his voice carrying the weight of ancient memory. My people were born from soil, not sky. We were shaped by the ground, our lives tied to the land itself. He drew lines in the dirt with his trembling finger, circles and symbols the soldier had never seen before. These marks are old, older than any war, older than the stars we look to. The soldier leaned closer, watching the strange patterns take form. What do they mean? He asked, his voice low. The farmer pressed his palm against the dirt, the faint glow rising again, weak but real. They mean binding, he whispered. When we swear upon the soil, the earth itself listens. It shares the pain, it carries the vow, it does not allow lies. His voice broke, but he continued. We are farmers, human. But before we learned to plant, we learned to carry burdens. The land taught us this. The soldier stared, disbelief battling against what his eyes had already witnessed. You're saying the ground itself enforces your promise? The farmer nodded slowly, his face pale but his eyes steady. Yes, every wound meant for you will come to me, until my body cannot carry more. The soldier's hands tightened around his rifle, his chest heavy with anger. That's not loyalty. That's suicide, he snapped. You've chained yourself to my suffering. The farmer smiled faintly, though pain lined his face. Chains can hold a man down, but they can also tie two lives together strong enough to lift more than one could alone. The soldier fell silent, his jaw clenched, the words cutting into the core of him. For years he had carried weight no one else saw, hidden scars of memory, faces of comrades lost in battles that no one remembered. And here this farmer, bound by soil and oath, dared to carry them with him. The fire crackled low, shadows flickering. The soldier spoke again, his voice softer. Why risk everything for me, a stranger? The farmer's answer came without hesitation. Because no one else came when I begged, and because you gave food without asking for anything in return. He lifted his weak hand, pointing to the soldier's chest. You think yourself hard, human, but I see the weight you carry. Heavier than armor, heavier than steel, and I will not let you carry it alone. He lifted his weak hand, pointing to the soldier's chest. You think yourself hard, human, but I see the weight you carry. Heavier than armor, heavier than steel, and I will not let you carry it alone. The soldier's throat tightened, but before he could answer, a distant howl echoed across the wasteland. Both men turned, eyes narrowing. The sound was not of wind or storm. It was something alive, something hunting. The soldier rose instantly, gripping his weapon. Scanning the darkness outside the cave, the farmer struggled to sit up straighter, his weak body trembling but his eyes sharp. "They will come soon," he whispered. "Raiders, scavengers, or worse." Drawn by the smell of battle and blood, the soldier cursed under his breath, checking his rifle and the few rounds he had left. "We're not ready for another fight," he muttered. The farmer looked at him calmly. No fight ever waits for readiness. He placed his hand once more on the soil, his voice steady despite the weakness in his chest. "Tonight the earth will test us again, human. And you will see the oath is more than pain, it is strength too." The soldier glanced at him. Frustration and respect tangled inside him. "You're bleeding out and you still talk about strength." The farmer's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Because strength is not in flesh, it is in will. And my will is tied to yours now." The soldier looked away, his chest heavy with unspoken words for the first time in years. He realized that the weight he carried was not his alone anymore, and that terrified him as much as it comforted him. Outside, the howls grew louder, closer, echoing across the dead fields like drums of war. The soldier raised his weapon, ready to stand. The farmer placed a trembling hand on the ground, whispering words in his ancient tongue. The soil beneath them glowed once more, faint but real. A promise that the burden was shared. The soldier muttered under his breath, "Then let's see if your soil can save us both." The farmer's weak voice answered, "It already has, human. It already has." A harvest of brotherhood. The night outside the cave was alive with danger. Howls echoing across the broken fields. The soldier stood at the cave's mouth, rifle in hand, his body tense, his eyes sharp as steel. Beside him, the farmer knelt with one palm pressed to the soil, his face pale, his body weak, but his spirit unbroken. "The earth listens," the farmer whispered. "It knows the burden. It knows the vow." The soldier glanced at him, frustration in his chest. "Then tell the earth to give us strength. Because we're about to need it." The shadows moved first. Raiders with torches and blades, their faces twisted by hunger and greed. They had followed the trail of blood, drawn by weakness, by the scent of prey. "There," one snarled, pointing toward the cave. "The soldier and his pet farmer, they'll feed us in our fire." The soldier raised his rifle and fired, the crack of gunfire shattering the night. One raider fell, but more rushed forward, their screams loud, their numbers heavy. The farmer staggered to his feet, leaning on the cave wall, his voice steady despite the tremble in his frame. "Stay behind me," he said firmly. The soldier cursed under his breath. Not this again. But before he could move, the raiders charged. The first blade swung toward the soldier, but the farmer stepped forward, taking the strike across his chest. Blood spilling, the soldier's rage exploded. He fired again and again, cutting down the nearest attackers. Yet every wound meant for him fell upon the farmer instead. The farmer fell to his knees, gasping, but his hand stayed pressed to the soil, glowing faintly with power. The earth itself seemed to hum, a low vibration that ran through stone and bone alike. The raiders hesitated, fear flickering in their eyes as the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. "What trick is this?" one shouted, but his voice shook. The farmer lifted his head, blood on his lips, and whispered, "The burden is shared. The soil carries it too." The ground split suddenly, dust rising in choking clouds, vines long thought dead pushing through the cracks. The soldier stared, stunned, as green tendrils wrapped around the raider's legs. Pulling them down, the farmer's voice grew louder, his chant ancient and powerful, each word spilling more blood from his wounds. The raiders screamed, hacking at the vines, but the soil did not release them. The soldier used the chants, firing clean shots, each bullet ending another threat. When the last raider fell silent, the land grew still again, the vines retreating back into the soil. The farmer collapsed fully this time, his body trembling as if every ounce of strength had left him. The soldier rushed to his side, dropping his rifle, pressing a hand to his wounds. "Don't you dare leave me now," he growled. Anger and fear tangled in his voice. The farmer opened his eyes weakly, his faint smile still there. "Did I not tell you, human? The soil carries us." The soldier shook his head, his voice breaking. "You're killing yourself with this oath," the farmer coughed, blood staining his lips. "Perhaps, but I am not dying alone. I am dying with purpose." The soldier grabbed his shoulders, his voice harsh. "No, you're not dying." "Not while I still breathe." The farmer's weak hand rose, resting against the soldier's chest. "You fed me. You gave me life when I was nothing but dust. For that I will always stand, even when I fall." The soldier's vision blurred, his throat tight with emotions he had buried for years. He whispered fiercely, "You're not my burden. You're my brother." The farmer's eyes widened faintly, then softened, tears mixing with the blood on his face. "No greater harvest can a farmer dream of," he whispered. "Than to be called brother by the one he serves." Outside, the first light of dawn broke through the ash clouds, painting the land in pale gold. The soil beneath them hummed once more, faint green sprouting in cracks where death had ruled for years. The farmer weakly gestured. "Look." The soldier turned, his eyes widening, small shoots of life breaking through the ruined earth. "Your kindness has sown more than survival," the farmer whispered. "It has sown hope." The soldier pulled him close, steadying his weak body, his voice low. "Then we'll sow more." "Together." The farmer closed his eyes, his smile faint but full of peace. "Yes," he breathed. "Together." The soldier lifted his rifle once more, scanning the horizon, but now his shoulders felt lighter, not because the burden had lessened, but because it was no longer his alone. And as the dawn spread, chasing shadows across the land, a bond forged in hunger and sealed in blood became stronger than chains. A human and a farmer, not master and servant, not savior and saved, but brothers bound by soil and burden, and sometimes, in the cruel vastness of the universe, that was enough to change everything.